Alright, I'm back with yet another quick Pauper deck tech. So this is just an update video to let you know how I'm progressing with my red-green Eldrazi spawn deck. So the latest version of the deck is a slightly more mid-rangey, more ramp-based version of the list, drawing inspiration from the red-green Ponza type Cascade uh, decks that are pretty strong at the moment. So we're kind of using a very similar shell to that deck, but just replacing some of the threats and engines with the Eldrazi spawn producing cards from Modern Horizons 3. So funny enough, the latest versions of those red-green lists are running Writhing Chrysalis anyway, even though they don't have an Eldrazi spawn theme beyond just this card, because basically this card by itself is just good enough to be included in certain red-green decks. So this is essentially the centerpiece of this deck, which is Writhing Chrysalis. So it's 4 mana for a 2/3 with Devoid, so it's colorless, which is useful. So it costs two generic, 1 red, 1 green, and it says when you cast it, create 2/0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens, which each have sack them, add 1 colorless mana. So what's pretty cool is that this triggers when you cast it, not when it enters the battlefield. So even if they counter it, for example, you at least still get the spawn. Now then it also has reach, and it says whenever you sacrifice another Eldrazi, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So by itself, it essentially just functions as ramp, and it's also essentially just 4 mana for a 4/5 with reach that potentially grows even bigger when you play more copies of it later on. But then in this deck, since we are filling out the rest of the deck with just tons of Eldrazi spawn generating cards, this deck actually becomes our biggest and most powerful threat. So this is our number one heaviest hitter, which just gets bigger and more formidable every time we sacrifice an Eldrazi spawn, which in this deck is a lot. And our main way of, well, or should I say, our second threat in the deck is Hand of Emrakul, which is 9 mana for a 7/7 with Annihilator 1, and it says you may sacrifice 4 Eldrazi spawn rather than pay its mana cost. So again, the name of the game here is just to get 4 or more Eldrazi spawn on the battlefield, sacrifice them to cheat cast our Hand of Emrakul in, and then obviously the Hand of Emrakul and the Chrysalis have amazing synergy, because when you sack the 4 spawn to cast the Hand of Emrakul, 4+1/+1 counters go on the Writhing Chrysalis. So these are our 2 synergistic game-closing monsters. So I'll quickly dive into the rest of the list. So this list is running more ramp but fewer lands than my previous Eldrazi version. And I should just say that this list in testing has been performing really well. I will add some gameplay as well. I just won a 2-0 match against Tron. I also beat Boros Synthesizer with this deck in testing. So this deck, although it still needs more testing, more tweaking, and more optimizing, it feels incredibly powerful, and it feels capable of taking on some of the strongest decks in the format. So, as I was saying, we've cut down on the lands. We're only running 16 lands, but we have upped the ramp count. So we're running the Utopia Sprawl Arbor Elf ramp package, which just helps get us going. Then we're running 4 copies of Lightning Bolt because it's just so useful. Then in the 2-drop slot, I'll start with Nest Invader, which is one of our best Eldrazi spawn creators. So it's 2 for a 2/2 that says when it enters, create a 0/1 spawn token. Then, one of the new cards from Modern Horizons 3, it's Malevolent Rumble, which is 2 for a sorcery. It says reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a permanent card from among them into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard, create an Eldrazi spawn token. So as you can see, the vast majority of cards in our deck are permanents, so this is, I wouldn't go quite so far as to call it a tutor, because it's obviously not that strong, but looking at the top 4 cards, that's a lot of cards. So this card is just fantastic for restocking our hand with valuable cards that we want, while also upping our Eldrazi spawn count. And then finally, a card that I'm kind of on the fence about because it's sort of high variance and sometimes a little bit win more, but it's Brood Birthing, which is 2 mana for a sorcery. It says if you control an Eldrazi spawn, create 3 Eldrazi spawn tokens, otherwise just create 1 if you don't already have any. So this is amazing for rapidly increasing our Eldrazi spawn count to power out the Hand of Emrakul, but it's incredibly underwhelming when we have no Eldrazi spawn, and also it makes us vulnerable to board wipes, which can be very annoying. So depending on how this continues to play out in testing, I might replace it with Warped Tusker from Modern Horizons 3 or Kozilek's Predator from Rise of the Eldrazi, which are other Eldrazi spawn generators, but which have the upside of coming with pretty decent bodies. So that just requires a bit of testing. But this is, if you're just trying to go for the fastest Hand of Emrakul play possible, Brood Birthing is the way to go, but it is high variance and not that great just by itself. Okay, then yet more cards from Modern Horizons 3 is we have Eldrazi Repurposer, which is essentially our 3-mana Nest Invader. So it's 3 for a 3/3 that says when you cast it and when it dies, create an Eldrazi spawn token. So again, just so much value. Both, you know, when it's entering the battlefield and if they kill it, we're still getting spawn, which is fantastic. Then we have the brilliant Glimpse the Impossible, which pulls 2 functions here as both Eldrazi spawn generation and restocking our hand with cards. So it's 3 mana for a sorcery that says exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. And then at the end of turn, if any of those cards remain exiled, i.e. you didn't play them, you put them into your graveyard and create a spawn token for each card put into your graveyard this way. So either you're playing cards off the top of your head, top of your deck, or you're getting Eldrazi spawn. So, and if you choose, you can just play nothing, and then this is just 3 mana to create 3 Eldrazi spawn, which sometimes that's exactly what you need to just cast down the Hand of Emrakul. But yeah, just a really, really, really epic card. And then finally, just as yet another threat, since we're in these colors, since we have a bit of ramp going on, just 4 copies of Avenging Hunter, because why not? It's just such a strong card. The initiative is just so powerful. It's just yet another threat, and it's probably better to just include this rather than, you know, a Warped Tusker or some other Eldrazi card, because this is just so good on its own, and it's good even if the rest of our Eldrazi are killed or out of the picture. So just yet another win con to ramp into. And then the sideboard, we have 2 Gorilla Shaman, just for those annoying artifact decks. We have Relic of Progenitus. We have Declaimer, which is a cool removal spell for artifacts and enchantments. 2 mana for an instant. It says choose target artifact for enchantment. Its owner shuffles it into his or her library. So this is great for just getting rid of indestructible artifacts like bridges, etc. Then we also have Weather the Storm for things like cycling, just all those annoying decks that want to play a ton of cards. And then finally we have Breath Weapon for dealing with those, you know, the weenie decks, the Kuldotha Reds, etc. So there you have it. Here's the current version of the red-green Eldrazi deck that I'm running. And yeah, this deck thus far feels incredibly strong. Perhaps I'm getting a bit lucky, I don't know, but it's been doing really well in all of the matches I've played thus far. I will obviously continue to play it and continue to see what works and what doesn't and make adjustments, but I thought I would just update you and just let you know what I think right now is the way to build Eldrazi spawn, because right now this version does feel better than the previous version I posted a week ago or so. So as usual, if you have ideas for the deck, please let me know. Let me know what kind of Eldrazi deck you've built, or if you have ideas for cards or decks I should build around just in general, please let me know as well. As usual, if you enjoyed the video and want to keep updated with the lists that I post, consider subscribing. I shall end it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.